Hey, it's Mr. Campbell, and in this video we're going to learn how to make the Pepsi logo, which is both difficult and easy at the same time, so it's a bunch of basic shapes. The tough part is to squiggle through the middle. So what we're going to do is I'm going to teach you a couple new skills to make that work. So what we're going to do, one thing we have to do to make the squiggle is to take a rectangle, and to make this more visible I'm going to make it red-ish. There we go. And let's make the stroke a little thicker so we can see that. And so here's the shape. Now in order to make this thing work, we need to have it fit the middle sort of wave right there. And there's a new thing we're going to introduce today in Effect menu, and that is the warp. Now the nice warp thing opens up, and it opens up this separate panel. And the first thing you'll have to do is choose preview. If you don't preview, it won't show. And it's not previewing because I have nothing selected. Ha! You have to have something selected or it totally won't work. Nah, that was weird. Okay, warp. And the one we're going to use for this is flag. So now I've got the preview on, and I can see it warps a little bit. Now I can have control over this. Generally, we want to control how much warp it has in it, but you can also change the distortion of it, so that'll make it wave one way or the other. So depending on what you're trying to accomplish, you actually have a great amount of control over how much warp it gets. So let's do that. Now, can you see the bounding box around that blue box right through there? So let's zoom up on that. And what that's telling us is that deep in its heart of hearts, this particular shape still thinks it's a rectangle. And we're like, no, you're a flag, man, waving around in the wind. But this thing still thinks it's a rectangle. So to make that work as a cutting object and to be able to edit it, because right now if I edit this point, all I'm doing is like that. So in order to make it edit a little bit better, what I need to do is select it and choose object and expand appearance. And what that allows me to do now is expand these shapes and goof around with all the points in a much more severe way. So let's go check out the Pepsi logo. Now, as you may have guessed, I've already built some layers for this, including my tracing layer at the bottom, my name layer next up, and I might even put my name at the top, you know, because my name's that important. And so I lock everything except for the art layer. Now the first thing I'm going to do is on this layer, I'm going to make a rectangle. And I don't even care what color it is right now. And the rectangle I'm going to draw is just going to be any color. It doesn't matter. I need to fit the size of the Pepsi thing. Now, one of the tools we're going to use a whole bunch in this process is the Align tool, the Align panel. Let's drop the opacity. Opacity we're going to reduce to see through it. Opacity is the opposite of transparency, so the less opacity we have, the more transparency we have. And we're going to line up a circle on top of that thing. So let's get a ellipse. And to get the perfect circle, use the shift key. And I'm going to move that around with space bar until I get it right where I want it. And even then I'm going to align it, because the more aligned and perfect this is, the better. So I'm trying to get a perfect circle with shift and move it around with spacebar, and there we go. So this big circle is designed to cut out the big gap there where the logo is going to fit. So if I take this and take both pieces, I can now use quickly and easily minus front. So I'm off to a raging start here. So now we're going to take another circle and draw it in there. So those two pieces are going to be broken into other colors later, like red and blue, as the logo calls for. And there's this, and I'm using shift to make a perfect circle and space bar to move around until I have it where I want it. And I'm also going to take this one and reduce the opacity. There we go. Okay, opacity is named after an Irish kid named Patrick Opacity, who himself was very transparent. You see, opacity, it's a common last name in Ireland. Or it's not, but it's fun to say. So what I need to do next is cut that shape out the middle. So before I do that, I'm going to let's see, I'm going to hide some stuff. I'm going to lock the pieces that I don't want to mess up. So I need to make that shape across the middle using the rectangle tool. So here's my rectangle. And that's totally the wrong shape, isn't it? And that's okay. We're going to fix it right up. And first, again, the opacity comes down because I need to be able to see what I'm doing. Now, remember that thing I showed you a minute ago with the Effect menu where I chose Warp and Flag? Okay, so we're going to make this a flag shape. Preview, and let's draw this back a little bit. I'm just trying to guesstimate the shape of it a little bit, just so I've got some of the work already done and vaguely symmetrical. So So I click OK. Now again, it still thinks it's a rectangle, so that if I punch through this, it will not give me the shape I'm hoping for. Like if I do this right now, and I minus front, it's that, which is not what I wanted. So I first must take this piece and Object, Expand Appearance. So now I've got the shape that it should be. But I do need to edit it a little bit. So I'm going to maybe zoom in on some parts, and I'm going to use the Direct Selection tool to move some points around. And I actually have great control with this tool over my points, as long as I don't have too many. If I have a lot of points, it gets jagged and it looks kind of funny and it gets bumpy. But if I have just a few, it's pretty easy to control the shape of the curves. So there's that. And I'm taking this one and moving it over, like the curve there, bending this around this way. And I'm going to take this point and move it over as well to there. And I've got to make this bigger than the circle. Not just exact, I need to make it bigger because I want to make sure I have enough cutting space, so I don't have like a little shard, a little sliver I didn't notice before stuck in there. So there's the top. And if you didn't notice, I'm using the space bar to move around the screen. Zoom out. So now I have this shape that works pretty good. Double check by turning it off, turning it on. It's not perfect, but I'm going to go with it right now. So if I unlock my circle and I drop this out and I use again Pathfinder minus front. Pathfinder, of course, you can find in the window menu. Now if I want to get really fussy about this, which I probably should if I'm a professional, I'm going to take out some of these points, like this one. Extra points. Again, extra points cause problems for me. Subtract. And of course that made bigger problems by moving it, but I had to do that. I had to. I'm telling you. So I've got the shape. You know what problem that caused is it took that point out, and well, we'll fix it later. So now I've got the shapes all put together. I'm happy. And my layer panel tells me that those two objects, the inner one and the outer box, are groups of their own. So I'm going to go Object and Ungroup. So now it changes them into individual paths. And Object, Ungroup again. So now I've got 4 paths that each deserve to have their own color to look like a Pepsi logo. So they are all have the opacity dropped down. So I'm going to take all these pieces and make the opacity 100% again, which is all the way see-through. Remember, opacity and transparency are opposites. So there we go. Now all I need is color, and I need some text across the middle. So this color over here is going to be red. It's really a good idea if you have a reference to work from, so it looks correct. This blue over here is a lighter blue than the one in the middle of the circle. And down here, let's see, what do we got there? That one's blue. Man, I can taste the Pepsi. This stuff's rot gut poison, isn't it? Horrible for your system. Heartburn. Eats your intestines. Okay, sorry. A little hyperbolizing there, and maybe a little bit of... Okay, there's my red. And there's my Pepsi logo. All I need to do now is take some text and go Type Tool, and I'm going to use Point Type. So I'm just going to click. Point Type allows me to adjust the size and the shape real easy and quick and intuitive, which is nice. So I'm going to make this, let's pick a font. Type, font. Here's all these choices, choices, choices. Oh my heavens. Where do I begin to pick? I'm going to go with this carbon black and stretch it up. Oh, that'll work nicely, I think. It's not exactly the same, but it's not too bad. So I'm going to try to match the size. And I now want to match the color. So let's see, I'm going to match the color of the bottom stripe using the eyedropper. And then I'm good to go. Now all I have to do is turn off the bottom copy and turn this thing in using File Save for Web devices. So if I use File Save for Web, what this allows me to do is, there it is, I can compare file formats to see what the file size and the transfer speed will be. You always want to turn off transparency so that we have that in there, and we're good to go. Make the thing, turn it in, and we'll give you some points. Thanks.